Yes, people right now are on the FT advisors. So, in recent days, we've had the Renters' Right Bill coming through Parliament. So, let's take a look at what's going on here in the UK around that. So, those who are landlords, those who are renters might be interested in this. So, MPs have basically voted through a Renters' Right Bill providing some buy to let certainty. Now, this has been ongoing for quite a while. So this bill was designed to basically build up the rights for those who are renting properties, as we've seen rental kind of, the monthly rent in the UK and in other places just shoot up over the last few years quite high. So let's see what's going on. So landlords are moving towards greater certainty as the Renters' Right Bill passes through Parliament and approaches royal assent. So royal assent is just basically a stamp from the current King of England, King Charles. Now, the Renters' Right Bill is a piece of legislation that bans Section 21 evictions. Now, Section 21 evictions were the basic part of this kind of legislation that people were worried about quite a lot because then they were thinking that they won't be able to get tenants out of their property when they need it for whatever reason that might be. So, with the removal of the Section 21 evictions, it'll be harder to get tenants out. So a lot of landlords have started to sell up and exit the actual property market in the UK, which is then causing more issues because there's less properties available for rent, and that's why rents are high because the government haven't been building enough houses over the last few years and decades. That's led to less properties being available on the market, less stock on the market for families to rent. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So caps so rental caps increase as well, and introducing stricter property standards has been officially voted through by MPs. Benham and Reeves director Mark von Grundher said during the course of the legislative process, the nation's landlords have been left wondering where they stand and what the future might hold for their investments. So the landlords in the UK, they do get quite a lot of stick. Obviously, me being one myself, um, people feel that landlords feel that they're getting a lot of negative attention, being the greedy landlords, and having properties full of mold and crappy conditions and so on. Actually, we're not all like that, right? So landlords like myself do look after our properties and maintain them the best we can. And whenever there's an issue, we try and resolve it as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, there are a small minority of scrupulous landlords who don't have their properties in good condition, and that can leave a negative kind of perception in the wider society. So it says here, so at least now we seem to be heading towards greater certainty with MPs having voted the bill through Parliament. Again, we don't know when that might be coming through in terms of actual law, possibly next springtime, maybe April. And some of the parts of this wider bill might not be ready for a while yet. So, however, it's likely to be many months still, like I just said, until the turbulence of this transition period subsides and the letting sector can move forward with confidence. So, some of these kind of things, like, for example, Section 21 eviction notices and the getting rid of, tenancies, the contracts and stuff, so that it's a rolling tenancies. So, the tenancies then become rolling, might come in possibly next year in April or even before that. So it says here reaction. So following the bill's passing, several brokers shared their opinion on what the impact of the bill could be on the buy-to-let market, with Repossession Rescue Network founder Patricia McGurr offering a cautious voice. Well, if you think about it, if landlords start to exit the market because of this renters' right bill legislation and getting rid of the Section 21 and so on, which is already happening, that's going to mean less stock available on the market for people to rent, which means higher rents because there's more demand, and also potentially more homelessness because people can't get the properties to rent and so on. So with things like increase of population, immigration, that kind of stuff, there's gonna be more competition when it comes to trying to get places to live, properties to rent. So this could have an overall negative effect on the property sector, real estate sector in the United Kingdom. So let's see what Patricia's saying. So she stated that while the bill delivers positive outcomes, like providing tenants with security, well, obviously more security because then they know that they've got, the landlord can't just issue a Section 21 just like that and basically ask them to leave unless they're selling or they're moving in themselves. So some landlords might do that to get the tenant out and then put the rental prices up and put it back on rent. Unfortunately, some do that, but that's just a minority. So there's more security for the tenant, and then basically they say that this type of legislation will help get rid of some of the unscrupulous landlords, the more negative ones, the ones who are not good quality. Replacing fixed terms with open-ended tenancies, which I just mentioned, so rolling contracts instead of like a 12-month contract or a 6-month contract. So maybe with a 2-month notice period. Setting decent home standards, so sound basically fair in principle, yet the practical reality is brutal, she said. So decent homes, what does that actually mean? What is a decent home? So things obviously like mold have to be sorted and stuff like that. But having EPC rating as C, is that under decent homes? That would mean that landlords would have to spend thousands of pounds to improve their kind of property in terms of the EPC ratings, make it more eco-friendly. For example, put insulation in so it's more heat efficient and so on. But that could cost thousands of pounds. So unless the government are going to be giving large grants, that kind of cost might then come on to the tenants in terms of the rental that they're paying on a monthly basis. So the government can cap rents rises while taxing sole traders landlords on debt, not profit. That's economic self harm. So there is talk about taxing landlords in terms of the income and on payroll, like national insurance type stuff as well. It's not come through yet, but that could also harm the sector as well. And then you've got things like the warning about the court system isn't ready. So obviously when things happen, for example, tenants don't pay rent for months on months end, then they have to go to court. There's long bureaucracy, waiting list, that kind of stuff, court delays. So the court isn't actually ready for this transition, which could cause a lot more problems in terms of piling up more pressure on the courts. So it says here we need a rental system that rewards good practice and ensures fair access for tenants, not one that grinds down the very people still keeping the market alive. So we also have to think about landlords in the sense that they are actually providing a service here for British people in the sense that the properties they're available, people can rent. Because some people might not want to buy a property. They might want to, for example, emigrate somewhere else in the coming years. They might not have enough money for deposit or to buy a house as well. So they might just want to rent in the meanwhile. Additionally, Brooklyn's finance director, Harp Scarcher, said that as a result of this legislation, smaller landlords will feel pressure first. So obviously, the small landlord might have one, two properties, small company. They're the ones who might suffer first, right? Whereas big conglomerates, they can easily kind of absorb some of this legislation because they've got so many properties and they turn over so much every year or every month. So this will need to be more selective with tenants, and they should think about carefully about long-term cash flow and maintenance costs when agreeing rents each year. So obviously, maintenance costs. So when a tenant moves into a property, they're using it wear and tear. For example, we had a tenant. We bought the property. Previous landlord did hardly anything on there, and then the tenant basically said that the boiler was leaking. So when we bought a plumber in to check it out, heat engineer, they said it's probably better off getting a new one. So we paid over £1,000 for a new boiler. So when you're getting a small amount of rent, £1,000 more than what £1,400 or something for a boiler, that's probably like a few months rent and that. So that could impact cash flow for us, for example, make it more difficult. So other people don't realize, and they talk about greedy landlords. Actually, small thing like that uh, could actually work out to be a big cost. So from a small leak to replacing a boiler system, it's not cheap. So this kind of maintenance work, when you do it, it does obviously help increase the value and help increase, the relationship between landlords and tenants, and it's a big cost as well. Like I said, larger landlords are a better place to deal with this type of stuff. Although we've seen loads of big social housing corporations whose properties are in terrible states, full of mold and damp and all this kind of stuff. So it's not always the case because sometimes large portfolio holders just don't bother with fixing, their properties or dealing with stuff. And even if they do, bureaucracy means that it takes a long time for maintenance costs or maintenance scheduling and works to be done. So also described the bill, so Gacha said, as being a genuine turning point for the sector, suggested mortgage brokers should already be speaking with landlord clients about how these changes are going to affect finances. And then finally, Ches Mortgages founder Bob Singh added a more optimistic note, stating that the bill may root out those who are operating on the fringes of the law. Again, there's probably a unscrupulous minority of landlords that don't, actually provide a good service. But I think a lot of landlords do, and the ones who do seem to always feel the pressure in the sense that the minority of the bad apples then have an impact on the wider market. So the bill has unintended consequences of putting power in the hands of tenants who can challenge pretty much anything and frustrate landlords, he said. Ultimately, it may lead to a more professional market and force out unscrupulous landlords. But it can also mean that landlords just think, forget this, it's too much bureaucracy, too much red tape, too much all this kind of, the ball swinging in the court of tenants. So let's just get out of here, go invest in something else, somewhere else. So, yeah, do let us know in the comment section below what you think about that. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Catch you in the next one.